It's pretty natural for us to spend a lot of time thinking about what other people think of us. It's hard to just ignore that and not let it influence how we live our own lives. A lot of times we have this instinctive drive to do things that other people will approve of. This constantly wondering what other people are thinking of us or how people might judge us can hinder us in what we want to do in our lives, and especially if we're in a leadership position, can dictate some of our decision making. On a personal level, this can hinder us from doing the things that we might want to try or pursue, and if we're in a leadership position, it can hinder us from making unbiased decisions. But I think it's important to keep in mind that no matter what you do in life, you can't make everybody happy. It's just impossible to do that. Different people's opinions and perspectives will always mean that there's going to be differences of opinion and you can't please everyone. This stuck out to me recently when I saw a conversation on Twitter around a report that aging had been reversed in mice. Now, I've done some reading about this and I know that there's some debate in the scientific community around what actually counts as aging and what has been done in this experiment and what might apply to humans. On this particular study, there's definitely still a lot of unanswered questions and additional research that needs to be done in the field. However, for the purposes of my topic today, it doesn't even really matter what the truth of the study is. What matters is what people perceive to be true. This particular study was presented on Twitter as fact, and a lot of people took that at face value as we have reversed aging in mice. Now, in my mind, being able to control aging is one of the greatest things that could happen in the world. When I hear about the potential of age reversal, my mind immediately goes to all of the potential benefits. Imagine what age reversal or age control could do for our lives. Imagine the extra time with friends and family, or the extra time that you would have to develop a career, the reduction in healthcare expenses, and the reduced risk of disease and age-related illness. In my mind, this just sounds like an overall great thing to have happen. What surprised me was, on Twitter in this conversation, people who were taking this report at face value as confirmation that aging had been reversed in mice, and maybe even that it could apply to humans. Despite all the potential benefits, when presented with what they perceived to be a fact that aging had been reversed, a lot of people were upset about that or had something negative to say about it. Now, some of these could have been bots, some of them could have been trolls, but I think a lot of people genuinely were upset about the idea of humanity being able to control aging. This just really stuck out to me because in my mind, this was an overwhelmingly good thing. This is just incredibly good news, and still people were upset about it. This tells me that no matter what news we get in the future, no matter what technological development or whatever happens, somebody will always be upset regardless of what's done. You could do the greatest thing on earth and somebody would still be upset about that. As a thought exercise, I decided to take this idea a step further, and I thought about what would happen if we had the power to create a paradise utopia on Earth, and it was very easy to do with no expense. Imagine that there are no negative impacts to this. Everybody can live in harmony and happiness forever. Animals are happy, the environment is sustainable, there are no negative impacts to this utopian paradise being implemented. Now imagine if we were to put that to a vote. How do you think people would vote on that? For many people, including myself, this might seem like a completely obvious decision. Of course you would want to create paradise on Earth. But I actually don't think it would be that simple. I think there would be a very strong opposition to the idea of creating a utopian paradise like a heaven on earth. I think that there would be a very large faction that would be opposed for a number of reasons. Some people might think that not everyone deserves heaven. Other people might be waiting for a religious afterlife. Some people might be skeptical about the whole idea and think that this is some sort of a scam or that something bad is going to happen, even if we could provide proof that that was not the case and everybody would benefit. Not everyone would accept that evidence and not everyone would be convinced in the end. And of course, many people would be wondering who's paying for it and who's profiting. We can think about this in the context of voting, where everybody sort of has a say in it and everybody's sort of sharing responsibility for the ultimate decision that's made. But imagine if you personally were the only one in the world with the power to do this with the snap of your fingers. Say that only you have this power and nobody else is aware that you have this power. You can choose to do nothing, or you can choose to snap your fingers and implement heaven on earth. If you don't do anything, nobody knows that you ever had this power, but if you do implement heaven on earth, everybody knows that it was you who did it. Now imagine all of those unhappy people who are against the idea of earthly utopia. they would also know that you had done this. I thought about this with my own decision making, implementing an earthly utopia, and how I view this as an ultimate good with no drawbacks. And I realized that I still couldn't help wondering about all of those people who were opposed to it and wondering what they would think of me if I had done this. I realized through this exercise how much I'm influenced by other people's thinking and not wanting to displease other people. It opened my eyes to worrying about other people's opinions and judgments regardless of what it is that I'm doing. This is something that leaders have to think about all the time, with a recognition that not everybody is going to be happy no matter what the decision is. There's always the risk of upsetting people even when the perfect decision is made. This is an important thing to overcome, especially for leaders to be able to lead effectively without being bogged down by the negatives or the opinions of other people weighing down on their decision making. Certainly, it is good to keep other people's perspectives and opinions in mind. Certainly, there's constructive criticism that we can get from others to take lessons from to make better decisions. But there's also a lot of other critical or negative opinions that maybe don't have as much value to our decision making. We should be aware of those influences and not let that impact good decision making. There's always going to be detractors out there who are against any decision that's made, and it's important to be able to move beyond that without letting that hinder proper thinking around decision making. In our personal lives, it's good to avoid letting this sort of fear of others' opinions or judgment from others impact how we live our lives. Say you want to try something new. You don't want to be bogged down thinking, what are other people going to think about me? I've mentioned before on this channel that I had the same thought in my head with starting a YouTube channel. It's a very natural thing, especially if you're going to do something that has any sort of public exposure, that a lot of times you'll be thinking about, I don't want other people to judge me for this, I don't want to be embarrassed by this, and that's totally natural thinking. It's natural to want to fit in with the community and not stand out in a negative way. However, this can hinder us from doing things that might be really great growth experiences just out of fear of what other people might be thinking, when a lot of times those assumptions are wrong anyway. In order to experience the world more fully, and especially if we ever find ourselves in any leadership position, we have to move beyond being dictated by other people's opinions. We have to move to a point where we can make proper decisions ourselves and as leaders for the group without worrying too much about what detractors might say or think if we make those decisions. The important takeaway here is just don't fear criticism from others too much. Certainly take constructive criticism, think about other people's perspectives, but don't let that stop you from making good decisions in life. It's inevitable that there's always going to be critics out there regardless of what we do, but it's important to not let that stop us from doing what makes us personally happy, or when we're leaders, for making good decisions for the group. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see anything else like it, you can subscribe below, or you can check out these other videos.